Here we have a standard 25-foot tape measure. At the end of the tape measure we have a little hook. As we extend the tape out of the tape measure, we see that we have standard numbers starting at, well, the end would be 0. And we have 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, and so on. When we extend it out up to a foot, 12 inches, we see that we have a second set of numbers show up. We have 12 inches, which is also a foot, and we have 13 inches, and then we also have a 1 inch. So 12 inches, 13 inches, or 1 foot, 1 inch. That continues on to be 1 foot, 2 inches, or 14 inches. Depends on what nomenclature you're going to be using, feet and inches or just inches. The entire tape measure continues, as we'll see when we get to 2 feet. We have 2 feet or 24 inches, 2 foot, 1 inch, and so on. So we can find these measurements quickly. Now what I'd like to do is let's cover what's in between these full inch marks. And to make it easy, I'm going to go up to 20 inches so that we're dealing with a 0 and a 1 inch. So there's 0 inches and 1 inch. In between the 0 and the 1, we have several divisions. The largest of them is to divide it in half. And between 0 and 1 we have 2 halves, so it would be half and then a whole, and it's divided into 2 segments. And we're getting into fractions here, which is a whole other area that we're going to explore. Tape measures are a wonderful tool to learn fractions. So from 0, half, to 1, we're dividing it into 2, which ends up being 1/2. Half an inch. If we divide it into fourths, to 4 divisions, let's say we divide this into half, so this is 2 divisions, this is our quarter line, right there. We have half, and half of that again is a quarter. We're going to add 1/4 of an inch, and there are 4 quarters to the whole, just like there are 4 quarters to a dollar. We have 0, half, full. We have 0, 1/4, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, and the whole, because there are 4 quarters. Here's 1/4, here's another quarter, another quarter, and another quarter. Now that we have our 1/4 from 0 to 1/4, if we cut this in half, this is an eighth line. This is 1/8. There are 8 segments this size within our inch. 1/8, 2/8, which is also a quarter, 3/8, 4/8, which is a half, 5/8, 6/8, which is 3 quarters, 7/8, and then 8/8. Since the 1 inch is divided into 8 sections, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Getting to the smallest mark on our inch is a 16th. Between the 8th and 0 is 1/16. And there are 16 separate lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So each one of these lines, each one of these spaces is in 1/16 of an inch at the shortest line. You'll notice that the largest line is half an inch, then quarter, then 1/16, then an eighth. You might be asking why we don't do this at the 0. At the very end of the tape measure, we can run into some inaccuracies. As you can see, this one has a little bit of wear and tear, and when you're using a tape measure, at the very end we have our 1 inch, we go backwards to 1/2 inch, and we have 0. But looking at this device here, you'll see that it moves, and it could be considered loose. It's actually designed to do this. The reason why it's designed to do that is that when you're measuring an object that you push the tape measure up against, we want this to extend in. When you're measuring an object that you'd like to hook off the end, let's say the length of a piece of wood, you hook over and you'll see that the end moves. So if we're pushing in, the end moves in, and if you're pulling on the end of a piece of wood, it pulls out. The reason why you want this to happen is to account for the thickness of this piece of metal itself. If you think about it, if it didn't move, then if we measured on the inside, it might be accurate, but if we then measured on the outside and it were not to move, it would not be accurate because of this thickness of this piece of metal. So we actually want this to move ever so slightly.